All right, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and through hiking, backpacking, whatever you want to call it, I haven't done a long distance one solo. And so I looked up, I'm in Washington State, and Washington State's been super locked down. Only essential travel outside of the state, and even county to county movements have been restricted. Like, we've had residency checks just at the Shoreline recycling and transfer station. So at least as of this point in time, I'm not doing any interstate travel. Washington State's been hit hard by COVID-19. And so I've been thinking, well, if I can't go to Ireland, camping, like I can do day trips. That's what I did this past year in 2020. So maybe I can start thinking about I have fears because of my sleepwalking and sleep talking, like walking out of a tent and off a cliff or something like that, because I've been known to do dangerous things, or things that could potentially lead to my death when I sleepwalk specifically. Camping at like just a normal recreational area that would be a huge personal growth milestone. So in my driving around Washington State, have found some places where I'm like, oh, it's a recreational area. There's people here. It's not out in the wilderness, which I like to do day hiking. But it'd be a good starting point, perhaps. But maybe I also there's the Washington Trails has a 10 Northwest Long Distance Trail Adventures, Epic Trails, and it's a Washington Trails Association publication. And so they have 10 different trails in Washington State that are longer distance. And so these range from I think it's approximately 30 miles to, if you wanted to, the Northwest Trail, which is over 1,000 miles. And so I was looking through them. Yeah, so there's some that are about 30 miles. And I'm a geologist. In geology field work, it's not quite like hiking, so it's kind of almost like at the opposite end of the spectrum of hiking, where hiking is just you're walking, you're moving through a place. Geology, we stop and we take in what's around us and we identify what's around us. So a lot of people will rely on geologic maps or topographic maps, and geologists get to make those maps so other people know what's around them when they're out hiking and that kind of stuff. Not everybody uses those kind of maps, but they're out there. And so I've done 6 weeks of consecutive field work. So the long distance in terms of number of days in nature is not foreign to me. 6 weeks is 42 days. And so we'd be out there, and there'd be, depending on what project we were working on, where we were mapping, that kind of stuff, 10, 15 miles, repeated days, after each other, was just a normal thing. And we'd have our work packs on, so we'd carry packs, different gear, heavy gear, we have rock hammers, compasses, heavy stuff. So not quite lightweight like hiking is. Though I'm a geologist, so my version of hiking might be heavier. And so, yeah, so long story short, this is not foreign to me. I think just focusing on hiking, this is part of where the through hiking versus backpacking kind of terminology comes in different, is I'm like, well, I don't just want to move through a place. I'm a geologist. I'm the person that nerds out and spends 8 hours looking at just some really cool exposed rock on the side of a mountain. So through hiking a long trail and me, that might not actually be a good combination, because it would probably take me 20 years to finish the trail. So thinking about that and thinking about myself, and I'm going, okay, I can do 10, 15 miles a day where I'm, walking not even a quarter of a mile, sometimes 50 feet, sometimes 10 feet, stopping, using my compass, taking a measurement, making maps, taking in the geology, identifying the rocks, that kind of stuff. That takes a lot more time than just hiking a trail. And so 10 to 15 miles for geology fieldwork every day is, well, if I were to just shorten that down to hiking, that would be a heck of a lot less time. So 10 to 15 miles a day is like completely reasonable. I've done that just in normal life. Like depending on where I've lived, cars aren't necessarily my main method of transportation. So there would be times in my life where I'll walk 10 to 15 miles a day, just walking around. So it's a way of saying that's a good base pace if I wanted to, with a pack. I've done that for geology. I've done that for hiking, through hiking in the past. So that's not brand new to me. And so this publication that I referenced earlier, the Washington Trails Association 10 Northwest Long Distance Trail Adventures, Epic Trails, they call the varsity squad like super long distance, so like Pacific Crest Trail, that kind of stuff. And I'm going, I'm all right with junior varsity, right? Junior varsity is still making the team. I'm trying. So I'm looking at what is called the Boundary Trail, and so it's in northern Washington state near the Canadian border, and it includes features such as the Horseshoe Basin, Cathedral Pass, and other things. I think there's yes, Cathedral Pass and Cathedral Lake, and some of the trail. So I like the scenery. It's in what I've looked up, the distance is approximately 80 miles one way. So if you wanted to do it out and back, it'd be approximately 160 miles. And I kind of like this trail. So I like the scenery. I like the length. There's potential wildlife such as elk, moose, and bear, which as a solo hiker encountering could be rather nerve-wracking. We have raccoons in the backyard. We have coyotes in the backyard. We have some of the bigger predators, including predatory birds in the backyard and in the ravine behind our house. So those I'm not so unfamiliar with. It's just a part of everyday living in Washington state, even in the city. So I'm in the city of Shoreline, which is like suburbs of Seattle. So we do get that wildlife in the city. And then, yeah, oh, where else? They talk about all exits west have deteriorated badly due to wildfires and erosion. And so as a geologist, I'm interested in erosion and natural weathering phenomenon in regards to rocks and that kind of thing. And the wildfire damage is also interesting. That was one of our training when I was at geology field camp. So it's a field course where we're getting trained on different geological landscapes, and we did cover wildfires. And so there's a bit of, in my day trips, I've seen a lot of really good rocks and that kind of thing. It'd be fun to hike this trail and see the geological evolution of the exposures, so the rocks that are exposed along the trail and the nature landscape. How does it change? And then putting my training in geology into exercise by then. Once, can I identify this fire boundary, this erosion boundary? How does the landscape change? And what processes can I see around me? So again, the 10 to 15 miles, I think is, for me, I'm a geologist, so it means I can take a really long time and to hike. But so there's a bit of that. I take some of my basic geology stuff with me just because this is really cool, and it looks like there are very cool rocks here. But I could, if I wanted to take more of a through hiking approach and focus on just hiking and walking through, then it might take me a lot faster, because the 10 to 15 miles a day was not with that just set approach. So potentially I could go a lot faster, because 10 to 15 miles a day isn't necessarily tiring for me. It's something that is fairly easy. I'm a active person, so I would still do some hikes to prepare for this. And I think the solo camping, at least one night, I think would be a very wise decision for myself. So no, it's not my first solo hike will not be the Pacific Crest Trail or some other 1,000-mile long trail. I'm looking at double digits, yo. And I'm looking at the Boundary Trail. Is this an announcement of it? Of my first solo through hike or overnight backpacking trip in the double digits miles? I guess in a way, but there's no date, and the when do I want to get it done by? Before I die. There we go. I think actually for when I could be doing this depends on if Ireland, my Ireland heritage travel trip is a possibility in 2021 or not. This is kind of a perfect thing for summertime if travel in Washington State is still restricted and we still can't leave the state. Yeah, so I would say potentially, and it'd be crazy if I could get this done this year. Like, I know myself, and I would have to push myself so hard to make this a reality. So 2021, same with Ireland. But that's a lot more open to chance and whether international travel for non-essential personnel becomes a reality or not. So that one's a bit more out of my control than this one. This is out of my control in a different way. And so, yeah, so in theory, not in theory, in terms of possibilities, it'd be crazy, but this could happen as early as 2021. I would guess it happens later, though. An insane year and that's like, insane is above crazy in terms of just like, haha, it's not possible, would be Ireland heritage travel trip and the Boundary Trail in 1 year. That for me would just be like insane. So my goal is to get something done this year, and if all I get done is one night at some recreation site, sleeping in a tent solo, that's also good. So I'm open to see what I can do this year. 2021, it's a new year, yo. Woo, woo, woo. Go see hockeys.